had not planned to do a video today because I was just taking myself out on one of my favorite things to do, which is a beach walk, as you may recall from days gone by in the DR. But you know, I got a big old beach here close to where I live, so might as well. And I've been thinking about things today and over the course of, I don't know, recent weeks and months and all that. And I thought, you know, maybe I should speak on this subject because I talk to my friends about it a lot, girlfriends, sometimes guy friends. And I think it's important because we don't always focus on hi to the people who are hopping on, where are you from, what's going on, welcome. So here's the thing. So we don't always think about, you know, I did a video the other day talking about self-care and things like exercise and nutrition. Good morning, Ron. Nice to see you. We typically think about self-care in terms of nutrition, exercise, getting good rest, all that kind of stuff. And relationships, I mentioned that with other people. Thanks for the thumbs up. And those things are definitely part of self-care, and they matter tremendously in our overall well-being. And so that's why I'm out here exercising, been eating well. I did have a little sugar hiccup yesterday, and I ate a bunch of stuff I shouldn't have eaten. But anyway, that's why I'm back out here. But there's another part of self-care that I think is really important. And I want to talk about that today. I'm going to tell you right now, I might ruffle a few feathers. I don't care. This is about me, taking care of me. And so I'm going to speak on it. You ready? Buckle up. Here we go. So, I think sometimes as people age, I don't know if it's more so for women than men, I'm not sure. But my own experience and that of a lot of my female friends has been that as you get older, you know, especially if you've been, let's say, kind of a hot girl in your early days, or it doesn't have to mean just physically hot, but you know, whatever, you were experiencing a lot of attention and lots of suitors and all that kind of stuff. And so at a certain point, you know, as you're growing up, you know, you feel like, well, this is just how it's going to be forever. There's always going to be loads of men to choose from, and nah, not him, not him, not him. Keep throwing him back in the water, like, nah. Or maybe you entertain someone for a while, you date a little bit, or you know, hang out with them as friends and whatnot, kind of try him on for size, and then decide, nah, I don't want to date him. It's all part of the process, and that does go both ways for men and women. Whomever you date. And it can happen, not necessarily with everybody, but it can happen that as you get older, you know, things change. People get married, right? For different reasons. The pool is not as large and fruitful or plentiful, let's say, as it once was. You know, your tastes change. We get older and we get stuck in our ways sometimes, and you know, maybe education separates us, or career paths. Just all kinds of things can happen. Pardon me, and I definitely experienced that. Now, I will not say I've been starved for male attention because that would be quite untrue. I get lots of male attention still, but I've thrown a whole bunch of fish back over the years. I've certainly dated. I was married, you know, gone on dates, had platonic friends, had romantic friends, all that type of stuff. Here's the thing. I began to feel like, okay, wait a minute. I'm getting older, and I have not chosen someone since I got divorced that I really want to spend like a long term with, like get married to again or whatever. Definitely felt like, yeah, I would get married under the right circumstances, although I'm not pressed at all. And that comes across too. Like if you're not really pressed, you know, you can do what you want to do. And I'm comfortable in my life. I'm self-sufficient. Like I'm happy with who I am. I don't feel like I need somebody to complete me, or I need a person to make me feel validated. I feel perfectly fine as I am, which is why, like, you know, moving to the DR. Some people are like, why would you do that? And you know, I remember way back when, before I went to law school, someone saying, girl, a woman told me, you're going to educate yourself out of the market. Meaning, I'd be too educated to find a partner. I was like, that is preposterous. Although, to some extent, I don't think I would say she's right, but I understand what she was talking about, because there are some men, some people, let's say, who feel uncomfortable with a partner, let's say, who's not equally yoked. That's not my issue. I can't make up for whatever feelings of, let's just call it inferiority or insecurity or whatever it is that someone else might have. That's not my job to make another person feel worthy. You got to do that on your own. We all have to validate ourselves and establish our own self-worth. And it's not based upon whether you went to school or how much money you make or what kind of car you drive, like all those external factors. It's not about that, right? It's about who you are inside, how you value yourself, those kinds of things. Okay, so there's an instance that happened recently, fairly recently, where I kind of lost, I won't say I totally lost sight of it. Here's what I mean. So, from time to time people are like, when are you gonna choose somebody and all this stuff? And even some of you YouTubers are like, are you with somebody? Are you dating? Are you married? Like, what's going on? And I tend to not answer that stuff. I've been like I don't put my private business online because it's my business. And I'm not gonna delve deeply into it now, but I will share this. So I met someone, I don't know, it's been maybe 6 months ago or something, I don't know, a while back, through a friend at a social kind of event. And we chatted very briefly at this social event. Seemed like a nice enough person. We began to chat after that on the phone, text, chat, whatever. And I liked it. I even liked the sound of his voice. It was soothing, nice, kind of funny to talk to. Had some laughs and seemed interesting. I will say there were some things from the very beginning that, one, my friend mentioned to me, and two, I was noticing on my own. I guess you could call them red flags. Like, not super hardcore, like, he's a drug addict, but just things that's like, I don't know if that's really a match for me. I don't know if there's compatibility there. But I was like, well, let me not just, again, throw him back right away. Let me just see. And so I was like checking, continuing to kick the tires. And this person came off as very nice and like just want to treat you well and be good to you and all these things and, all that type of stuff. All right, sounds good. Visited on a few occasions. We don't live in the same city, right? So we visited on a couple occasions. I will say this, things began to move quickly, very fast, very soon after we met. And at first it was kind of thrilling, like, oh my gosh, maybe this is it, maybe this is gonna be the guy, right? But as I said, some of those, what I'll call red flags, began to kind of pop up again and again in different ways. And sometimes, and I didn't see this right away, but sometimes when someone is like overly excited and enthusiastic, as much as that can seem like a good thing, I think sometimes it's masking something that's not so good. And so in this case, I began to see, even though initially I was like, yeah, I was in it too, I was in the conversations like, okay, well, maybe we can make some plans and do this and do that and travel and whatever, talk about some future things. And then it just felt like way too much. I got a Valentine's card calling me wife. Just a lot of stuff. Came to visit, wanted to leave his shoes at my house, and I was like, you don't need to leave your shoes here. You know what I mean? Just like instantly trying to lock it down. And I was like, we've known each other for maybe 3 months? Too much. And when I tried to kind of backpedal a little bit, there was resistance from him, even to the point of him, from my perspective, seeming offended and like bent out of shape. And so when I suggested at a certain point, look, let's just really focus on today, right? We don't have to project into the future, 6 months, next year, whatever. Let's just do today. Let's focus on building a friendship. Oh, so now you just want to be friends. It's just going to be platonic, all this stuff. And I was like, see, to me, being friends is a good thing. Because if you don't have a foundation of friendship, what do you have to fall back on when stuff inevitably happens that's going to rock the relationship? I mean, that's just life, right? Things come up in life, whether it's family situations, financial stress, health concerns, just anything, right? It's just a bad day. And so if you don't have, if you have not established that you are really cool with this person, that they're your friend and your rock and you can rely on them, when those times come, the wind blows hard and the waves are smacking against you, you're going to crumble. And so that told me something. And let me say this. I do give some grace for feelings of like rejection and feeling bad. Like, I guess he built up an expectation that it was definitely going to be a certain thing. And I was like, not so fast. Not so fast. So I get that. However, at a certain point, I would think as adults, we, like you do some introspection and you think about, all right, let me look at this objectively. Because by the way, I never said, get out, I'm done with you, I'm kicking you to the curb. It was never like definitive, I'm through here. I just was like, it's feeling way too intense. I want to slow this down. I'm not comfortable. And, I guess he interpreted that in whatever way he chose to and made it into something that it wasn't. And I'm telling you this personal stuff because I feel like, as I was saying initially, a lot of times as women or maybe just as people, and maybe people of a certain age, right, when you get to a point, you feel like maybe I should just take this. Maybe it's the last chance I'm going to have to find somebody. Maybe it's the last job opportunity. It doesn't even have to be a personal relationship. Maybe it's the last great job opportunity. Maybe it's the last whatever, I don't know, fill in the blank. And so we begin to shortchange ourselves by accepting something that isn't really what we want or isn't really good for us. And what can happen is that then, you compromise. Well, let me say this. I'm totally for compromising. I don't mind compromising. What I don't like, when one of my friends said, well, Kelly, everybody settles. You just have to settle. And I was like, excuse me? That's like a dirty word. And understand when I say that, I don't mean that I'm some spoiled brat and I expect that I'm going to get every single box checked on, whatever list people have. I don't think that. I recognize, like I said, you have to compromise. Take a break for a minute. You have to compromise. Let's say you have 10 things on a list, right? That you want this, that, and the other thing in a person. If you get 6, 7, 8 of those things, that's pretty good. Now the key is determining which of the 10 are most important for you, right? Maybe it's really, really important that the person have a stable career or, have a good family relationship. He or she gets along well with family because, that can be very telling if that's not the case. Or, is financially secure or super good looking or whatever the things are that you feel like you must have, then, go for it. I feel like it's as we mature, certainly things have shifted from when I was younger. When I was younger, I was only dating the fine guys. I was like, I wanted to be fine and look like this. And, I dated those guys. And I can say certainly those were not always the best guys for me. They frequently did not return the type of thoughtfulness that I wanted. But they were cute. So obviously I learned my lesson. And so that's not at the top of my list. Yeah, I want a guy who's attractive or handsome or whatever. And this guy will say was an attractive guy or is an attractive guy. But that's not the determining factor. You don't have to be, uber wealthy. Yes, being financially stable is important at this point. But the idea is you come together, right? And you build whatever it is together, you help each other out. So it's not about that you have to have, X net worth or make X number of dollars per year. I'm not caught up in that either. Character is non-negotiable for me, right? Having certain types of values is non-negotiable. It's more of some of those intangible things. Being a kind person and being secure in yourself. And so I wouldn't say that he has bad character. I don't think so. But I do think it was more, it was subtle. Like I didn't see some of the things initially, but I feel like it felt like he was kind of demanding of me in ways that really demonstrated a selfishness in him. Like when I said, I'm not comfortable right now, I want to slow things down and let's work on the friendship. It was like, no, he's not Dominican. But he does have some island blood in him, I'll say that, from one of his parents. Like I said, I felt like it ultimately was really about what he wanted to do and his timetable and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't immediately apparent because he comes off as such a nice guy, and he's kind of mild-mannered, soft-spoken, kind of, like that. Not one of those brash, super macho, egotistical dudes. He's not that kind of guy that I have seen anyway. But I noticed these things in a couple of different scenarios. Here's one. So my son was sick, a couple of months ago, had a real bad, respiratory infection. So he was coughing for nights on end. It was home from school for a few days. And I was exhausted because I'm staying up, and I couldn't sleep because he's coughing and taking care of him, that whole thing. So by the time it was sort of at the end, I was wiped out. And so I was sitting in my living room one night on the sofa, just not passed out, but relaxing. And I heard my phone ring in the other room. I did not get up and go rush to the phone. I don't do that. I was like, I knew it was him. You know how you can just tell him, I know it's him. I can feel it. And I'm not getting up to go get it. So later on, before I went to bed, I went to take a shower before bed. And I looked at my phone, and sure enough, it was him who had called. I didn't call him back. Now, we had talked earlier in the day, texting, something. There had been some communication. But I did not call him back or text him back that night. Because I was just fucking tired. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to talk to you. It wasn't just him. I didn't want to anybody. I didn't want to communicate. I just wanted to be quiet and go to bed and get a break from the caretaking and all that stuff. Can I tell you, this man had an attitude, and I won't say went off. He wasn't angry shouting at me, but he definitely had a problem with that, which I heard about for far too long the next day. And I was like, what? How do you not understand that, it's not personal. I don't want to talk to you or anybody else. Well, I was worried and this and that. Blah, blah, blah. I said, I get that. And here's what he said. I need to talk to you every day before I go to bed. What? You need to talk to me every day before you go to bed? What if that doesn't work for me? What if I don't want to talk to you on a given day? Not because I'm upset, just because I don't feel like it. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I just want to be quiet that night. Maybe I just want to read a book and go to sleep, whatever. And that's why, I don't know if that was the first time, but it was little patterns of things like that I began to see that were tipping me off that, not quite who I thought this guy was. A little bit of selfishness. And I will say, well, thank you, Hugh. Yeah, and it takes some, in terms of wisdom comment, it takes some awareness of yourself. It takes some listening to sometimes a really quiet voice inside of you to let you hear these things, because it's easy to miss it, especially, like I said earlier, if you're oh my gosh, well, I'm older and I haven't had a guy or a woman in a long time and I better grab this person and who knows when the next person's going to come. Let me tell you something, fuck that, that's bullshit. I would rather be by myself and happy and carefree doing what I want to do than with somebody who doesn't really value me. Now, of course, he said he valued me and he's going to be so great to me and to my son and all this kind of stuff. Of course, right? Because if someone doesn't say that, if they say the opposite, then that's open and closed right there. But you know how they say don't pay attention to their words? Listen to their words, but there needs to be more than that. And so that was one instance when he was talking about, well, I need to talk to you every night before bed. It was very much about him. And it's almost as if he didn't hear anything I was saying about how I was feeling and what I needed in that instance, It wasn't oh, hey, babe, I get it. Let's talk later. Look, get your rest. I'm here if you need me. Message me if I can do anything. Can I help you? Do you need anything? Nothing. And I won't go through every instance. And there weren't a whole string of them, but there were several. The most recent being, so after I told him slow this down and all that. So if you watch my recent videos, you know that I was in the hospital, surprisingly. very recently, like maybe, I don't know, a couple weeks ago for a few days. Nothing extreme, but just a sudden onset of very strange symptoms, like kind of flu-like symptoms. But I was really kind of jacked up for a while there. I'm like, what's going on? Well, I think it may have been like just stress, exhaustion, which then made me susceptible to, another respiratory infection, different types of love languages, maybe so, I don't know. And I will, let me say this before I go into the whole hospital thing. I do introspect. I look at myself, like, how did I contribute to this? Was I not clear enough about my own needs? Whatever. So I do think this is not about just blaming somebody else for whatever issues there may be. You got to look at yourself too. You got to look at, how am I presenting myself? Am I being truthful and honest, even with myself, but what my needs are? Maybe I need to be clear that, even though he wasn't in the same city, like, maybe I don't want to talk every single day. And I remember when I said to him, like, in terms of that thing with my son, I was tired, didn't want to talk. Like, I needed a little space. That basically blew his mind. He was like, we're not even in the same city. How could you need more space? How could you need more space? And I was like, your response right there, that's how. That's how. Because you're making me feel more pressed. When I'm telling you I'm stressed out and I'm exhausted and I need a little bit of time to not have to talk to you, the fact that you are demanding it, that makes me want more space, even if we're not in the same city, right? So you have to also look at yourself. And sometimes you don't know it up front. I think that's the beauty and the opportunity in relationships, is you get to see, what do I need? How am I being true to myself? Do I even know myself well enough to say those things and to communicate that to someone else, right? So it's always an opportunity for growth. So for that, I'm very grateful, and I thank him for that. Okay, so here's the next thing. So I was in the hospital, hadn't talked to him for a while. He invited me on a trip out of the country, and I'm sure he thought, he had said, it's going to be romantic, and we can go do this, and be on the beach, and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I declined, which probably also blew his mind. Like, what? Who declines a trip out of the country? I do. Because when I began to think about it, frankly, there was more a feeling of dread. Like, this man's gonna be all over me. He's gonna be pressing me, and I don't want that. It's not gonna be relaxing for me. It's not gonna feel like a vacation. At one point I thought, well, maybe this would be a good time to talk about some of the stuff and, like in a neutral zone, not at his place, not at my place, whatever. But I was like, ugh, And there were some other factors also that I just felt like it's a no for me. One of which was that it was during my son's spring break, not too long ago. So he was up visiting grandparents and friends and doing his own thing. So I got to be at home alone for this span of time, which to me was blessed. It was wonderful. And that was more valuable and enticing to me than going off to some island with a man who was going to press me about just everything and try to convince me to be with him and convince me to get married or whatever. Like, again, pressure. Like, you're not hearing me. So I declined. I don't need a trip that badly at all. I can take myself on a trip if I want to, Okay, but that's not what I was going to tell you. What I think most recently I've reflected upon that makes me see some stuff that I don't like is, again, this hospital stay I had. And so I'm trying to think of like a lot of details. I won't go through every detail. But I will say that I hadn't talked to him for a while. Like, after the trip, maybe he was upset that I didn't go. Like, I don't know. And then he messaged me this long text message, kind of telling me I was in a dark place and now I'm doing better and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. Okay, whatever. Well, so finally I was like, let me just call and say hello and, how you doing kind of thing. So I did. And I didn't tell him right away that I'd had this experience of being in the hospital. But I did eventually share that with him. Oh my God, why didn't you tell me? I would have come and been by your bedside and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm okay. And, oh, well, thank God, and praying for you, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that was, like I said, maybe a week and a half ago. And do you think this man has followed up to say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on with you? Are you okay? Anything I can do to help you? This man who was like, oh, I'll do anything for you and I'm going to be there for you and no one's going to love you more than I do and all this kind of crap. Do you think he has reached out? Once again, to me, now maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but it feels selfish. It feels like if he's not getting exactly what he wants, then, you know, whatever. And he even acknowledged at one point, he's like, yeah, I think I overreacted. And he said you wanted to be friends. And I get that. Like I said, your feelings can be hurt. And look, and I was very gracious. I didn't be like, yeah, you did. I didn't go there. I just said, you know, we're human and things happen and I get it, whatever. So I didn't like nail him about that. But again, back to my point in terms of self-care, all of this is self-care. So yes, we compromise in life with our families, with the work that we do. Sometimes you have to do stuff you don't want to do. I teach my son that all the time. Hi, Michael. There are things that we do that we don't want to. Things we do that we don't want to do all the time. That's just the way it is. You have to suck it up. It's not always going to be, 5-star experiences. Sometimes it's going to be crap that you just have to march through and get to the other side. But I just feel, and like I said, I don't think that everything is going to be, 10 out of 10 or even 8 out of 10 sometimes. Relationships are not 50-50. Relationships are 80-20 today, 65-35 tomorrow, 90-10 for a month when someone's parent is sick maybe, or you know what I mean? It's a pendulum, and I'm okay with that. But I think for me, I need to know that at the root of everything, you really are down for what I say I need in general. Now, I might say I need something on a given day and you just can't offer it because you don't have it. You're exhausted, financially, it doesn't work with our budget or, whatever. I get that. I want to go on vacation right now. Well, we can't do that, babe, because, finances. I'm not talking about unrealistic or, unreasonable things. I'm talking about if I'm telling you, hey, look, I'm wiped out, I'm super stressed, I'm feeling the pressure, I need to just have a little space and downtime. I would hope that you'd be able to honor that and not have your mouth poked out and stomp your feet like a 5-year-old. And obviously I'm not being literal, but you get me, right? And so that is a self-care I speak of today. And one of my friends came by, I think it was during the time that I was to have been on this trip with him that he invited me on. And she's like, girl, how do you feel? Just take note. No, she said, take note. Pardon me, take note of how you feel being by yourself. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so good. I was like, I feel like free and relieved. She's like, yeah, what does that tell you? I was like, true. So, maybe he is a nice guy, whatever. I don't know. But as someone else said, being a nice guy or a nice girl is not enough. You gotta have more, you gotta demonstrate like your willingness to suck it up sometimes for the next person. And I'm not talking about, I guess I am talking about sometimes hardcore sucking it up, like it really is inconvenient or, the mother-in-law has to come stay for a month. Sometimes it's like, oh God, pain in the butt. But I wasn't even really talking about that. I just meant like, give me a minute. In one instance, like that night and maybe the next day, like I don't really want to talk right now. And I don't want to have to explain why I'm feeling stressed and tired. Making me have to explain that is exacerbating the feelings I'm having. Or I'm not ready to move forward in a more serious way in this relationship. Let's stop and just be where we are. Focus on the front thing. And again, you pout and stomp your feet and have this whole attitude. Nah. Because at that point I realized it's much more about you getting what you want. And I will say this person is unmarried, has never been married, doesn't have kids. And so I think that may be part of what is internally propelling him to have this sense of, it's like a sense of desperation, super neediness. You know what I mean? I'm not here for that. I'm not here to make you feel whole. You got to do that work on your own. I said that at the beginning. So that is my message to you all today. Whew, my feet are wet. See? My toes. Yeah. So, and I will say, you know, sometimes it can be like, oh my gosh, well, should I just take someone rather than no one? Should I, you know, am I going to meet another person? Yes. Yes. Do I miss that other experience? No, I don't. I don't. I feel great. I feel great. And I feel the more that we are true to ourselves, even if it means not having some sort of instant gratification, the closer we come to receiving what it is we really, really want long-term. You can get the short-term fix, you know, oh, I haven't had sex for a year. You can get sex any day. I mean, that's not a hard thing to do, right? But is that what you want? You just want that? Or do you want like meaningful connection? You know, haven't been on a date. Or, you know, I'm trying to think of an analogy in like the job situation. I can't think of that right now, but you understand my point. You can settle for just having something right now that's going to appease, you know, like your craving for whatever it might be. But is that what you're really after? Yeah. In my case, the answer is no. I want long-term fulfillment and satisfaction. And I don't expect to be alone forever, or not have a date. I mean, again, dates aren't hard to get, you know. But I want, you know, if I'm going to be with someone long term, I want it to be something where there is much more compatibility and we're equally yoked. And there's a level of thoughtfulness. And as much as it seemed like there was sort of thoughtfulness, when the rubber met the road in this instance, I realized, oh, it's much more about him satisfying his needs in the moment. Not listening to me saying, no, I don't feel that, or even like reading my cues when I'm not like very open and like super demonstrative. That's a cue. That means I'm not comfortable and I don't want to do that. I don't want to give you a big hug and a kiss and stuff. If I'm not offering that, don't try to get it. Because either, you know, you're going to get it and it's going to be whack, or I'm going to be all bent out of shape. And then there's other hurdles to overcome. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's my self-care message for today. Not the kind of message that people usually talk about, but you have to honor yourself, which means you have to know yourself. So take the time to get to know yourself better in whatever way. Maybe you need to take a walk outside and just listen to what your thoughts are. What are you thinking? Are you thinking scared thoughts like, oh no, I'm never going to have this, or I better not leave him, or I better not leave her because, you know, they're helping me pay my bills, and how will I manage this? Or, you know, who's gonna, whatever, you know, who's gonna be the person to do something for me? Or, oh, I've been with them for so long. I didn't know a guy, but I met a guy, I don't even know him well, but like in a group setting with some other people. He was sharing some of his experiences in a relationship he was having. And he was saying, basically, I'm not sure how long he'd been with this woman, but it sounds like a long time. But he basically was sharing that he was not happy and he was not getting what he wanted and he really wanted out. But he was essentially like too chicken or too weak or whatever to just leave. And, you know, I think he had a pretty well, I don't know if he was an engineer or something, but he had a pretty well-paying job. Like, he could have done it. But he just was afraid of, like, what's going to happen. I remember some of the other people and I were talking to him like, what's going to happen is you're going to feel great when you get that albatross from around your neck. Like, take that weight off of you. Like, why are you staying when you're clearly not happy? You're telling all of us, right, to some extent anyway, how this is not meeting your needs, but you're staying. What is up with that? And I'm not saying if you hit a bump in a relationship, abort, I don't mean that. I'm not talking about just at the first sign of trouble you leave. But if you know over a sustained period of time that you are really not fulfilled, or this person does not value you, and it's much more about what they want than them meeting you halfway, I would reevaluate. That's exactly what I did. And I really was like, I rolled around my mind for a while, like, well, you know, the whole good guy thing, and maybe my age thing, and I went through all that stuff. But inside of me, I could not shake that gut feeling like, no, it's a no. It's a no. And when I let it just be a no, let me tell you, I felt like I dropped a 50-pound boulder off my back. I really did. So you guys, let that be a lesson to you. From Free Island Girl, still free. I just got great news yesterday that I got awarded a grant to do some research this summer in Europe. So it's going to cover my travel and expenses. Yay! You know, things work out. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be better than all right. Thriving, okay? So, that is all. Mwah. As always, lots of love. Listen to yourself. Pay attention to the signs. Be quiet. Find your own wisdom. As Hugh said, it's about wisdom. It's true. Okay? All right, guys. I'm going to have some quiet time now to listen to myself. Enjoy the rest of my beach walk. Have a great day.